Is this your standard, that if a supporter of another candidate, not the candidate himself, does something despicable, that it's okay for you, personally, a candidate for President of the United States, to behave in that same way? I mean, I expect that from a 12-year-old bully on the playground, not somebody who wants the office held by Abraham Lincoln.
Again, I didn't start it. He started it. If he didn't start it, it would have never happened.
We're not on a playground. We're running for President of the United States.
I agree with that 100%. And my views are not playground views.
Donald Trump with Charlie Sykes earlier this week up in Wisconsin, and Mr. Sykes joins us now, along with Craig Gilbert, chief political reporter for the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel, and Congressman Sean Duffy from Wisconsin's 7th Congressional District, Republican Congressman Sean Duffy. And Mr. Sykes, let me begin with you. You had that pretty remarkable, I guess, about 17 minutes with Donald Trump earlier this week. He came on your show despite the fact that you and your fellow talk radio hosts up in Wisconsin have been quite tough conservatives on Donald Trump. Why do you think Donald Trump has turned out to be such a poor fit for Wisconsin, according to the polls right now?
Well, I think it's the culture, and I think it's the politics of the state. We actually do, and I was trying to tell him this, we value decency and civility and rationality and reasonableness, none of which is really associated with Donald Trump's campaign. And I think that he's misread the culture. I think he's misread the political landscape. You know, here in Wisconsin, we're actually used to dealing with substantive conservative ideas. We're used to listening to people like Paul Ryan, watching the reforms of somebody like Scott Walker. So when this political music man comes into Wisconsin, he's actually coming into a town where we kind of see through his scam.
You see through his scam. And Craig Gilbert, in some ways, Donald Trump and Ted Cruz have actually made this a referendum on the leadership of Scott Walker and, to a lesser extent, Paul Ryan.
Yeah, I think this is the home of Reince Priebus, Scott Walker, and Paul Ryan. I think his attacks on the Republican establishment don't resonate as much here with Republican voters, because it's kind of a cohesive Republican Party that's really kind of been at war with Democrats for many, many years now. It's a conservative Republican electorate. You know, an activist I know kind of likened it to, in Trump's case, to sort of hitting a cheddar wall in Wisconsin. When you look at the conservative activists, conservative media, political establishment, governor, all these forces, and a Republican electorate, particularly in southeastern Wisconsin, where he's deeply unpopular and where Republican primaries are decided.
I like that, the cheddar wall. Meanwhile, Sean Duffy, you're from northwestern Wisconsin, and you said earlier this week that you believe there are a lot of quiet Trump supporters in your district, and you have the largest district in the state. Did you see anything this week, or do you think they saw anything this week that would shape that support?
Yes, so I have a third of the state in landmass. I have central, northern, and western Wisconsin. And though Charlie Sykes and conservative talk radio have a huge influence in southeast Wisconsin, they don't have so much of an influence in our district. And so what you've seen is the Donald Trump get a lot of energy and enthusiasm in our part of the country. He had 2 rallies in Wisconsin in our district yesterday, and it was amazing. You mentioned the polls earlier, George. He had women and young people that were out there enthusiastically supporting him. He was over capacity. Thousands of people were out in the cold listening to him give his speech. So I think there is a very powerful Trump movement in the center and northern part of the state. But I got to tell you, the Ted Cruzes of the world have put together a great campaign. He's knocking doors, he's making phone calls, but he doesn't have the same kind of enthusiasm, because Ted Cruz was not always everyone's first choice. Scott Walker was the first choice, or somebody else. So Ted Cruz is the second or third choice of folks who are supporting him here in Wisconsin.
Charlie Sykes, I see you shaking your head there.
Yeah, I think there's a little bit of a delusion there, because this is very clearly not Donald Trump territory. In fact, you come into southeastern Wisconsin, where people have been paying attention, where the voters have been battle-tested, and he is deeply, deeply underwater, and he's being hammered among conservative Republican women, not just on the issues, but they're repelled by his treatment of women, by his attitude toward women, and I think you're going to see that played out. And also, at least in the areas where I am and Craig Gilbert are, the crowds for Ted Cruz have been very, very enthusiastic, and in part that's a backlash against what I've described as the weapons-grade stupid decision by Donald Trump to attack Scott Walker in this state. If this is a referendum on Scott Walker in Wisconsin, where he has an 80% approval rating among Republicans, Donald Trump is going to be annihilated.
So, Sean Duffy, what do you tell your constituents who ask you, hey, what do you think about Donald Trump?
Well, first of all, we're in two parts of the state. Southeast Wisconsin is far different, and I think Charlie's right when he talks about Southeast Wisconsin. But I'm in the north woods of Wisconsin, and again, a lot of people, they look at Donald Trump, and he's someone who isn't talking about ideology. He's talking about America. These are people who feel like they've been left behind. They want the economy to grow. They want more opportunity. They want America to defend her border and decide who comes in and who comes out. They want a leader who's going to destroy ISIS. And so...
So is Donald Trump that guy?
Donald Trump has really spoken to their hearts. Well, I think we're pretty split up here. He speaks to a wide swath of folks who normally don't come out and engage in the political process, where Ted Cruz has that traditional conservative Republican element. And it's divided. And I think, if I was to hedge this thing on the energy side, I think in my part of the state, Donald Trump is probably going to win, but Ted will get a close second. But I think Ted Cruz will win with flying colors down south.
Finally, Craig Gilbert, your latest column, you write about Wisconsin's record of picking winners in their primary. Every nominee in both parties since 1988. Expect that to hold this time?
No, I don't. I mean, there's a good chance that Wisconsin's streak of not just of picking eventual nominees and picking front runners, they're in danger in both parties, obviously in Donald Trump's case and on the Democratic side. I think it's a competitive race, but it's a very good state for Bernie Sanders in two big respects. It's a very white state, and it's an open primary, so independents can vote. He's got a big base of support around Madison and Dane County, big source of votes. So that streak is very much in danger on Tuesday.
We will be watching on Tuesday. Thanks very much to all of you for your insight.